Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. As you may or may not know, I was involved in a car accident, hence not at work for a month or two. So, out of boredom, frustration, I'm not allowed to lift things, I'm not allowed to drive, I'm not allowed to do anything, not even spending money. So, I'm just sitting at home reading comics, getting bored. So, I thought I would do these. I was looking through all my D&D stuff, and I thought I would show off these old advanced D&D hardcover books. It seems like people are enjoying this. Just so you know, there's a link in here if you want to pop in and talk with me. You know, I'll minimize you in the corner, but have your face. No avatars. So as usual, I have a comic on Fund My Comic, Heroic Tales. It's a return to Blue Sky Superheroes. The patriarch is he's a devoted father, loving husband, but a beloved superhero. Adventures, dramas, kind of set in like 80s Marvel comics. You know, we all grow up and want to recapture our childhood. I know 90s comics are kind of the rage right now, so I'm fighting an uphill battle, but $10 complete story. And if you're interested, it's also on Kickstarter with a different cover by Michael T. Gilbert. So check those out, please. But here we are. All right, filibustering. Oh, I also have this Heroic Tales challenge coin. I made these. So far, the only way to get these is to PayPal me directly. If you're interested, it's johnslongbox@yahoo.com. PayPal. It's $30, including shipping and handling. These are expensive. Yes, I know they're expensive. And then these are the other coins that are in the campaigns. These are $5 each. You could get these in the campaign. I have them right now. If you want to PayPal me now, and I could send them to you in the mail tomorrow. And then I just put a reference quarter so you can see, the size. All right, we got 7 people watching. Can everybody see? Can everybody hear? It's funny. I just cleaned this thing, but it is so dirty. I'm buying a new one. I just ordered another one that should be here tomorrow. This is just disgusting. I wiped down my desk because all the comments are like, dude, your desk is filthy. Yeah, my desk is filthy. I've been living at this desk for the past 2 weeks now. My wife works upstairs. I'm just home all day, just hanging out down here. All right, so enough ado. We got 9 people watching. How's everybody doing? If anybody wants to pop in, again, here's the link. I just enjoy people coming in and talking. So we got the Fiend Folio. I assume people watching this are into D&D. This book, oh God, I hate this book. I love it and I hate it. It's just like such a, look how dirty it is. It's just such a classic part of my childhood. And I don't think I used too many creatures from this book, because you'll see. Now, look at this. Shirley Christensen, Du Bois, Pennsylvania, August. I don't know what, and then Dragon Publishing. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. When me and my buddies all got together, if we were playing Dungeons and Dragons at Carl's house or Sean's house or my house or Scott's house, we would all show up with our books, and the books got swapped around. So I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. So this is 1981. I think this is the first and only edition. Okay. And the story about this is all British stuff. You see how it says TSR UK? I think these creatures were mostly submitted by fans to White Dwarf. White Dwarf being the English version of America's Dragon magazine. And then they were compiled and put into this. So I don't know how many of these are like steeped in actual lore, mythology, legends, folk tales, literature, or just made up whole cloth by fans. So by Random House, yeah, UK, yeah. So yeah, it says over here, Drudge. Okay, it says it's mostly UK stuff. Let's get this cord out of here. That cord is. You can see my farmer's tan. So we got some Jeff D artwork over here. I already talked about my encounters with Jeff D. No need to bring that back again. And here we got the first creature of the book. the Araka Birdman. That is cool. That is absolutely cool. That Jeff D artwork. Neutral good. Just Birdman. Araka. So I'm gonna hazard a guess that these are just this was just made up by a fan. You know, this was not part of any legend or anything like that. You know, it just sounds like the noise a bird makes. This close up of the face. I used to love Jeff D's artwork, man. I still love his old artwork, and I wish the guy when he did the Living Legends, the Villains Vigilantes, the new edition, his art just wasn't the same. I don't know. You know, I'm not an artist. But like guys like Dan Panosian, who started in tabletop games, they get better and better. How did Jeff D get so much worse? I don't know. But I love these sharp, crystal, razor sharp lines. I love it. Is he using different equipment? I don't know. 14 people. Can anybody comment in the chat? Let me know that it sounds good. I get sometimes paranoid that nobody can hear me, especially since I'm kind of extra chromosome. I don't know. Something about these four-legged birds. Something pretty cool about them. And I loved over here the picture of them actually grabbing an adherer. It's not even, you know, it looks like a mummy. It's just a sticky person. It's just a person sticky. So anything that hits it sticks to it. You know, it's just kind of lame. So far, I did not use any of these creatures. I always just laughed that that he was wearing a belt and had a lot of pubic hair. Oh, Sean. Thank you, Sean. I can't help but get a little paranoid. Again, people watching, if anybody wants to pop in and comment with me, that's always fun. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy talking with people. Alix. I don't know. Are they from anything? I don't know. Algoids. Al Midra, like this horned rabbit. I don't know. This looks like it's mythological, but I don't know. Like an apparition. You know, this is just like a distinctions without differentiations. You know, like all these D&D creatures. Like one of the things. Hey, Marcus is here. Hey, I'm at work at lunch. How you doing, Marcus? How's everything? Good to see you. How's everything? He has his face on his belt. Oh, you're talking. Is there a delay? Oh, this guy. Yeah. Yeah, I do love the art. I love this like sketchy artwork and a lot of the stuff, Russ. But like this a lot of things about D&D is, believe me, I was anal retentive. You know, I'm not going to say autistic because that's just like, I hate when people say they have OCD and autistic and whatever when they don't. They just mean they're a bit anal retentive. I'm a bit anal retentive, but I don't think I'm OCD and I don't think I'm autistic. Although I look back at some of my older behaviors as a kid and I wonder, but like I used to just, you know, write down all these differences, stuff like, but even I thought like, what's the difference between a specter, a wraith, an apparition? Like these are just like, oh, there's different words, so therefore they have to be different creatures. You know what I mean? Like we don't take into account like geographical differences or linguistical differences, you know, or the fact that there was no instant communication in medieval times. Yes, a D&D is supposed to be, you know, medieval Europe. So like there could be just like local affectations. Is that the correct word? Hey, J-Bot. How you doing, J-Bot? J-Bot and I will have a talk. I forget exactly what day. I got to look at my calendar. Got beer Zerker. Geez, I can't even talk. And my wife thought it was really cute. I thought it was really cute. An assassin bug, you know, an astral searcher. I hate when there's no picture. A babbler. So it's a dinosaur that babbles. Bats. Or burbling. Burbling. Who cares? A blindum. It's just so goofy. It's a blindum. That's what we call it. And what's it do? It blinds you. It's a blindum. This is just like, you know, kids made this stuff up. You know, it's just crazy monsters to throw in your D&D. I like the Fiend. Oh, this comment didn't pop up. I like the Fiend Folio, but it always felt a bit off. Yeah, it felt weird, right? It just doesn't feel right. I tended to use creatures that were either just super cool, like nobody could deny they were cool, or they're like steeped in mythology, lore and legend, things like that. But like a blind him, I never just used. Oh, Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday 9 p.m. Tuesday 9 p.m. J-Bot and I will be talking. Maybe the Astral Searcher is invisible. It is. It is actually invisible. Astral Searcher is invisible. Yeah, are created by mindless shells of nebulous humanoid shape. Okay, so it doesn't say invisible. I know the aerial stalker is invisible. People love to put you on spectrum. Yeah, yeah. It's just another way of saying I'm special. I'm different. I'm everybody wants to be unique, except they don't accept truly unique people. Like I apropos of nothing, going off on a tangent. When I mentioned that the patriarch, the main character of Heroic Tales, that his children are homeschooled, people seem to get a little heckled by that. And they're just like, oh, so they're going to grow up to be weird. And I said, yeah, well, so what? We all want everybody. We all say that we value individuality, and yet we get mad because a homeschool kid, to me, has the chance to develop his own quirks, his own thoughts, his own mannerisms, his own behaviors without being socialized into like, to behave a certain way. And then we pretend to value individuality. And then when we have a solution to that, we basically attack it, but he's not going to get socialized properly. There you go. I thought we valued individuality, but there we go. See, a buka, I think a buka is a derivative of a puka, which is an imaginary creature. Bullywugs. That's so British. Little hopping frogs. A carbuncle. I thought the carbuncle was the funniest term because it 11th grade Long Island parlance, a carbuncle was the name of a floating poop. So if you opened up a toilet and there was a floating poop, that was a carbuncle. So this was always a funny creature to us. The bunyip. The bunyip terrified me because, like I said, somewhere around 3rd or 4th grade, I got a book out of my local library that was this. It looked like it was drawn by Shel Silverstein, but it wasn't, obviously. But it was all monsters from around the world, like African, South American, and things. And one of them was the bunyip. I think it was like native Australians, Aboriginals. And this creature would come and it would rise the tide, and people who touched the rising tide during the bunyip would like, they couldn't escape the water, they drowned. Drowning is terrifying. Caryatid columns, I cannot pronounce it. Caryatid columns. All I know is was naked chicks. And when you're an 11-year-old boy, the appearance of horniness is horniness. A caterwaul, which is clever because a caterwaul is, the word caterwaul means like annoying loud noise. So annoying loud noise as a creature with cat, so it's vaguely cat-like. F in the chat says there's the blindum, the hurts you, and the bites that guy. Oh, bites that guy. a pokey eye. Yeah, I know. What is it like? There's a word for what they're doing here. A blindum, Heroic Tales comic book. Heroic Tales comic at Kickstarter right now. Just got another sale today. Thank you. It looks like I'm tracking to make the 1,000. I just really want to make that Michael T. Gilbert cover. Syphil, I really thought this was cool, but to me, this was a sci-fi creature. Like, this would work better in Gamma World than the D&D. But it's an acronym for Colonial Insect Form Artificial Life. So this is a hive mind, like Swarm, who fought Spider-Man. So it was a swarm of insects that formed a collective intelligence. I love this. I've never used it, and I really do like this. And I got to say, Swarm, the Spider-Man villain, was one of my favorite villains. Clubneck, the cough. My friend Carl, he I'll never forget. He liked annoying adventures. So one of the things he did was he made an adventure where he only used the most annoying creatures from this book. And one of them was the cough. And all it did was sit in a corner and cough. I can't help it. I'm a cough. Corpse. It was just the stupidest thing. But what is the purpose of these? These foul creatures of the undead class are found at stranded funeral barges or in any other situation which a corpse failed to return to its maker. Though the coffin corpse resembles a zombie, it's treated as a wrath. Who cares? So, it's like I said, it's a differentiation without distinction. A Dakon, so it's like an intelligent ape, I guess. A dark creeper, big deal. Like, what is the use of a dark creeper? Hey, Yang Yao is here. How you doing, Yang? How's everything? Gamma World is a lot of fun. Yeah, I got to see if I still have my Gamma World stuff. A lot of my books are just haphazardly thrown on shelves upstairs. That's what I told myself the next time I was, had free time from work, I was going to organize my bookshelves upstairs, but I'm not allowed to do anything, and it's driving me crazy. The Fiend Folio, another book I spent years pouring through for really no good reason. An apt description. And one of those Greyhawk modules, there's an ancient spaceship trapped under the ice. That was a lot of fun. So, yeah. What was it? The Great Barrier Peaks. Is the expedition to the Great Barrier Peaks. It showed that lithids were from outer space and had ray guns. Yeah, I remember. I remember there was I ran a campaign where they crossed the desert into a town, and the town discovered a gun, as they called it, black smoke, and they made gunpowder, and they made primitive like blunderbusses and guns. And I remember my adventure. We took it stride or whatever, but I remember when we were telling about it to other people, they were like horrified that we're breaking D&D. Darkstalker. I got to admit, this is cool. These are the leaders of the Dark Creepers. Nowadays I'm looking at these. I could think of a cool story to use with these. A Death Dog. Who cares? Yeah, a Death Knight. All right. This is one of the characters of monsters rather that it was just cool. And I used the Death Knight basically as like a dark rider. Let's face it, if you play Dungeons and Dragons, you aped Lord of the Rings to a certain extent. And I had Death Knights. They took my place in my Nazgul. And also keep in mind, this is when my knowledge of Tolkien came from the Rankin and Bass and the Ralph Bakshi cartoons. Yang, do you want to come in? Do you want to come in and talk? Your knowledge of role-playing games would be a lot of fun, and is an open invite for anybody who wants to come in and talk. Gary liked mixing fantasy and sci-fi. Hell, Gary, yeah. He also liked mixing creatures like an owl and a bear. And again, D&D is so influential on my life. And Lolith, again, I always was fascinated by Lolith. I just love this spider goddess that the dark drow elves worshipped. The Denzelian. This is basically the Horda from Star Trek, right? No kill eye. Then the devils. The Styx Devil. Devil Dog. A Dire Corby. That's just, I don't know. I can't prove it, but this just sounds and looks so British to me. I'm stuck at work. Oh, yeah, we got to work. Work gets in the way. One of the things I'll always be grateful to N-World. What is N-World? Is for the time I got to spend talking to Gary on the forums before he died. I don't know what N-World is, and that's cool. You got to meet. Well, so you talked to him at a message board. Is that what that is? That is so cool. I was putting together like a list of people that were influenced on my life, different aspects of my life, and one of them, of course, is Patti Smith over there. Patti Smith, like a musical influence on my life. Andy Kaufman, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee. They have become one being. Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, this amalgam gestalt being, and Andy Kaufman. These are people that are just super, super influential in my life. Besides family members and things like that. But Gary Gygax is one of them, because let's he encouraged me to daydream and think and enjoy storytelling. It was, granted, we were a bunch of 11-year-old boys, hiding because we didn't want to get made fun of by girls, but it made it fun. Instead of sitting around whining, we built stuff. We built worlds. Disenchanter, this is just one of those solutions, and you can see the numbers over here. So, I don't know who used, for all I know, this is Scott's or Carl's book, and they have my book. I don't know. But this Disenchanter, this is like a solution. Like, I gave away too many magic items. So a Disenchanter is going to come in and eat the magic. A doom bat. N-World was the website that served, probably still does, as the main hub for games and gamers, third-party DD before and after. Oh, Colonel Plato. Oh, wow. Is it still around? Hey, how you doing? Just going to make you a little smaller. Just a little small. The star is this glorious monsters in the Fiend Folio. Nobody can compete with that. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, those were fantastic. I mean, even look at the art. It's just great.
Oh, I love the art. I love the art. I almost called you Gary. Yang, do you know what this is? N-World? Are you familiar with this? I mean, you seem to be more into role-playing games than I am.
I don't know.
I wish I knew about this. I'm so mad that you could go and interact with Gary Gygax. That would have been awesome.
That's pretty cool. I know he was on Facebook back in the day too.
Damn, I didn't know that either. Phil Enzalomo. These lore supplements are always great, whether you play D&D and yeah. I bought a couple of 3rd edition and 4th edition books just to look at the art and to data mine for my role playing games, which is, Villains and Vigilantes hybridized into my own very heavily house ruled. Yang, have you ever played? I know I asked you, but I forget the answer. Did you ever play Villains and Vigilantes?
I've never played Villains and Vigilantes. I always played the Marvel superhero role playing game.
Yeah, I played that too. But I don't know. I thought it wasn't that great. I liked.
Yeah.
I didn't like the. I'm sure I played it wrong because I remember it was just like whatever you did, you just missed. Like you missed like 75% of the time.
Did you have a character with very low stats or something?
I played the Vision. Vision should be just crushing everybody, But I'm sure I did it wrong. I played it once, didn't like it. That's not a good enough sample. And now I'm too entrenched in my V&V to try anything else.
Yeah, it's funny because the Marvel superhero role-playing game had a system called Face Rip, where that's because it was fighting, agility, stamina. No, fighting, agility, something, endurance, reason, intellect, psyche. So there were way too many stats, and then they had like a chart. And the interesting thing is, like most role-playing games, you would level up. Well, in the Marvel one, instead of leveling, your powers would just increase.
Okay.
So you could choose like, oh, my mutation has gotten more.
Well, that's what kind of happens in Marvel. Power creep happens. If you remember, Jean Grey struggled to lift a book in the first appearance of the X-Men, and now she's like, crushing tanks and stuff. Wolverine. I'm struggling to read it the right way, but like 99% of tabletop roleplay or woke, everything went woke. Anything that we enjoy was infiltrated and destroyed, and I'm like building a fortress up in the mountains, and I only lower the drawbridge when I see at night he has the proper heraldry. Okay, that's Yang. Yang is cool. He could come into my castle, and it's the only way I could stay happy because get off my lawn. I used to buy as many 40K codices as I could for the read. So much. What's funny? Yang, have you ever played Warhammer 40K?
I have not. I've never been wealthy enough to
there you go.
to play that game.
There you go. I had roommates. I'm surprised Kevin's not popping up, but I had roommates in Albuquerque that they would they would go to work, they would come home, they were either playing Warhammer or we were playing our role-playing games or they were painting Warhammer. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So these guys were into it, and it looked so much fun. I would go to bed, and these guys would be up to like 6 in the morning with battles and everything I wanted, and I could see it was like an invisible telekinetic hand pulling me towards the Warhammer table. But I just knew I was broke. You know, I was a college kid at the time. I couldn't afford to get into it. And then they did the meanest, evilest thing. Oh, dude, I have this whole elven army. You could just have it. I'm like, no, no, that's how they get you. That's how they get you. Yeah, that's how they get you. I like that people are talking to each other. Uh, Gary had become really sold on the idea of rules light systems. He was okay with die 20. Yeah, as far as I know, like they say, never meet your heroes. But I heard that Gary has been nothing but a good guy. Have you ever met Gary Gygax?
I have not, but a buddy of mine online who's the Dungeon Delver, he had written some modules for Gary back in the day, and he's got a great interview with Gary that he did by phone. This was, I think he said he put it on Facebook, and this was like right around when Facebook was coming out. So it's a little older, but he just sat there for like an hour, picking Gary's brain. And it was fantastic. But I've heard that like Gary sort of went through phases where not that he was ever a bad guy, but like, he was a poor guy from the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. And then all of a sudden he has like this multi-million-dollar company. So, people sort of go off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
But then, like later, he was supposedly the sweetest guy. Like you would encounter him like at a game shop or something. He'd be like, "Oh, here you go. I'll buy this stuff for you," or
Oh,
he would
cool.
just give people free stuff all the time.
Ah, that's good. That's good. I got a little nervous. I thought you were going to tell me, like, he ran over my cat and laughed.
No,
A
I
lot
don't
of
think it was
comments,
that
guys.
bad, but
I'm trying to address every comment because I love this stuff. Does anybody watch Lord Gosamba stream? I do not. So many.
I don't know him.
I'm purposely not subscribing to new channels because I'm just trying to get stuff done. It was more affordable when I was like 12 back and forth. I know. Anybody look
Yeah.
at anybody free to go to eBay and see what this book costs on eBay right now?
Those first
Especially the
editions are
D&D book,
expensive.
the DD's Demigods book I showed yesterday, the unedited one. Oh my God, I think it's like 500
Oh,
bucks.
with all the Lovecraftian
Yeah,
creatures in there. Oh man, you're lucky.
yeah.
That's like
Again,
the Holy Grail.
I know. I got it when it came out. I'll keep doing these. I did something similar to this when I first started out, and it was I think till this day it has like 3 views, so I might as well have not have done it. What is this comment? I never met Gary in person, but from all on the forums, he's really cool. I had both arguments with him about female dwarves should have beards. Yes, I worry about that because sooner or later there's going to be a heroic tale set in my fantasy world, and female dwarves will have beards because to me it just makes the dwarven race that much more distinct. And to me, that is a counter to the elves, which are all going to be kind of femmy in my world. So
It's
all the
2024,
dwarves.
man.
What's that?
It's 2024.
Yeah, yeah.
Might as well.
And it's funny because I had adventures of I used to call it a dwarven braiding party, like instead of a raiding party. And what it was
Uh-huh.
it was a family, so it was the husband, the wife, and the kids, but they all had the beards braided the same way to show that they were. But to the outside of a dwarf, you couldn't tell what was the father, what was the son, what was the wife, because dwarves live 400 years. They all kind of somewhere around 100 years old. They all look the same. So you could tell that they were a family unit by we all share the same braid, and you didn't want, if you killed one of them, it was like the RAF. We will get you. Maybe not today, but you killed one of us with and then when they killed you, they would braid your hair in their family braid to show you like revenge is coming. But the player characters like don't mess with a braiding party. You know what I mean? I thought it was a fun way to distinct dwarves from the other races.
Have you seen the art from the new one that's coming out in a month or
Oh
two?
yeah, they're all in the bakery, just like having a good old coffee, and
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's
and I don't know if you noticed, but the dwarves in that image they had their beards done different ways, and two of them have each other's beard styles tattooed on their arms.
I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's I. Okay, so you don't like the. That's fine. You don't get an argument from me. It's fun to argue as long as it's fun to argue. You know what I mean? Once we get into seriousness and feelings hurt, then that ain't worth it. You know what I mean? It's we're talking fantasy stuff. Yeah, $50 to $100 for this book. For this book, the Immortal Rules, where there was something. Yeah, there's a book of Immortals that I never got. I need to get that book. Oh, geez, the comments are coming so fast I can't turn the page. I almost want to get the new DMG because Venger is on the cover. Nostalgia bait. Yep. Did you see the Mexican orcs?
Yes,
And did you see?
that was
I
awesome.
forget who it was that redrew it. They were all killed by the old school orcs in the same landscape.
No, I didn't see that. Sounds
I'll
great.
try to find it and I'll send it to you. It's kind of funny. Oh, as I hit the tripod. So have you used any creatures from the, like, when we get to a creature, shout out if you used it, Yang, anybody in the chat. But I do think that these were cool. And I asked, I don't know if you heard, I heard, and I can't confirm, that this book was compiled from readers sent in creatures to White Dwarf, the UK fantasy magazine, as opposed to Dragon, which was the American Dragon. And then this was compiled from like the best of White Dwarf and then turned into the Fiend Folio. Does anybody know if that's the truth or not? But that's what I was told. And hence why a lot of these creatures are just like an adherer or a blindum, stuff that has no basis in folklore, mythology, legends, and fantasy.
I don't know, but that sounds pretty cool. And it sounds like something that they would do at the time.
Right.
Like,
because you see,
free,
it says,
free info.
It says at the beginning, copyright UK, a lot,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? A lot of British copyright. So these creatures are cool. These are obviously derived somewhat from Asiatic dragons. Like I don't claim to be an expert, but these are cool. This was cool, even though I never used it. A carp dragon, dragonfish, the Dune Stalker, this wonderful Jeff D artwork. I already explained my encounters with Jeff D. And then the elemental princes of evil. They're so bad they're great in a way. Have you used any of these?
I have not. I think that they've gotten reworked quite a bit over the years.
I worked at a bookstore. These books would sell out. oh, while you worked there. Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Nice.
As long as we're just nerds batting heads. Yeah, and that's the spirit of my It's Clobbering Time, the show I do on Fridays when we battle comic book characters. I did get my 50th anniversary D&D collection. Oh, that's right. Yes, for the first edition print. Yep. I'm an old guy. Venger is the main one in the center of the cover. Or is it both? I mean, I'd say it's cool, but I know better. It's a cheap nostalgia bait. Yeah. All right. So anybody use these? Elemental Princes of Evil. This Ogremok. I always laughed at this picture. It's just like the unscariest thing. It's basically the silly putty man coming at you.
That was something that I like. This book specifically, and sort of this time period is where I think AD&D like really solidifies itself, because if you go back to the original ones, they had some illustrations that were like this, but then they would have stuff that looked like it was out of like the Sunday Funnies, and like there was just like tonally it was all over the place.
Yeah, like they would like a bugbear. Just it looked like it belonged to Calvin and Hobbes or something.
Yeah, and there would be warriors who looked like they were straight out of BC or something.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
And it was fun, but like this is the part where they sort of figured out like, oh, we can make it like have a, get art direction and really sort of set the mood a bit more.
How cool is this? Bill Willingham over here drawing the draw elf.
So just to answer your question from before, I asked an expert, and he says that the creatures did mostly come from White Dwarf. He said there are roughly 20 that came from D&D modules done in the U.S., And he said, "Oh, well, there he is," and the rest were from White Dwarf.
Yes, because Lolith was referenced in the Vault of the Drow, and the Drow elf were referenced obviously in the Vault of the Drow. So a lot of the module stuff was compressed into this book. But I heard that rumor for many years, and I believe it, but I can't confirm it. So thank you, Dungeon. If your name is the Dungeon Delver, I will accept your word over my word.
He is the expert on all things AD&D 1E.
So this I've been a fan of Bill Willingham's art since 1981. And then from here he drew some work for Villain Vigilantes, and then went right to the Elementals comic. Been a fan. He's like my holy grail to get on my channel.
Oh,
I know a few people. I know a few people that are friends with him, and they said, "Good luck. He doesn't even talk to me anymore." That's the older he gets, the more he's a reclusive. Which, God bless you. Have enough money that you can just become reclusive. The enveloper. This is just like a goofball creature. The Ettercap. Now, this was a source of an argument. Isn't Ettercap a word? Like, because they say it in The Hobbit. Remember, they tease in the spiders. They call Bilbo calls them Ettercaps.
Yeah.
Is that a British word? And if so, why isn't this guy spider-like?
I don't think the Ettercaps were spiders. I think they were some, I don't know how to describe it, almost like a gremlin-like creature.
Yeah. Oh, God, a drow. Do you say? How do you say it? Phonetically, how do you say drow? I know it's like a drow.
Yeah, I say drow, but a lot of people say dro.
And again, I'm not gonna get my feelings hurt, but drow elves are evil. They're dark skinned. They don't do well in the light. And they're freaking cool. They're the coolest. I love them. So, if you go through and look, you'll see who contributed which. What are you studying up to see who would win, Spawn or Spawn versus Hellboy this Friday night on It's Clobbering Time? And I really appreciated that everybody got the spirit of Isom and Cyberfrog on Friday night. It didn't turn into a bash people thing. It was a fun comic book fight. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm sure the people who did the original artwork probably did it because they loved it. They thought it was fun. I don't. Ettercap equals spider-like capabilities. Oh, okay. I got to write that down for a possible villain in Heroic Tales.
Yeah, there
Drow
was
like cow. Okay, so it's Dow like cow, or Drow like cow. Okay. Is that official, or is that just your opinion? I'm sorry, but yeah.
Oh no, I was going to say there's a great artist a story. Assuming I'm getting this story right, back from the original D&D, where it's true, nobody was rich when they started making D&D. It's not like 4 rich guys got together to make this, but they had a guy that I believe he went to high school with, or one of his kids went to high school with, called Tracy Lesh, who did a lot of stuff, and he's still working today. He does a lot of great art.
What do you know? Do you know anything about H.G. Wells? Like invented the first tactical miniatures game, Tin Soldiers or something like that.
Did he? Oh, I don't know. Now, I do know that wargaming was very popular in the 1880s.
Oh, wow.
And it was super popular in Europe because that's how they would test military strength. Like wargaming really came about in like, we're gonna have people command units to do this and do that. So you could potentially say like, well, would my armored cavalry be able to punch through France's line of infantry or whatever? And it was pretty serious. And apparently, like the GM, the game master or referee or whatever they were called back then, that was like a super important position. That was a military position. They all had to be military people, so you understood the basics of war. So when you were doing this kind of gaming, you would have a knowledge of like, is this possible or is it not?
Oh, wow. Does anybody have anything that you could point me to read up on that? That is fascinating. It makes sense.
Here's the Dungeon Delver, Prussian Military Academy, Kirschspiegel.
You know what's funny? my friend Carl, the one he was my first DM, the one who got us all into this. His father would talk about Kriegspiegel, and I thought he was talking nonsense. He was also if somebody's freaking calling me, he's also the one that was the architect was the archaeologist that when I was talking about the deities and demigods, he was an archaeologist that went to Guatemala and met Carl's mother and had South American artifacts. Very fascinating family. He later on became a lobbyist to Congress. So just and we used to just as a kid we used to just joke around that he was the smartest person in the universe. Very intelligent, very erudite. Is that the word? Just seemed like very. And he used to, whenever we played Dungeons and Dragons, he would go, "Oh, you Kriegspiel," and we just thought it meant nonsense. Oh wow! Thank you, Dungeon Delver. You just like triggered a pleasant childhood memory. Can I join for help spot? Yes, I asked Marcus to be just a moderator because I anticipated a bunch of people coming and spamming and making attacks, and I was hoping that he would keep the chat civil, but we didn't need it. So yeah, of course, Marcus, you're always welcome. I enjoy Marcus. There are 17 TSR monsters. Kriegspiel. I'm going to definitely look that up. I am definitely. Thank you for. Oh, and Wolverine. You wrote game mechanics for many years for Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe you can help me if my comic does well around issue 6. I was thinking of making a Heroic Tales role playing system. Nice. Fire newts. Nobody cares about fire newts or fire drakes. Anybody care about these? But I did like these full page art. To me, I remember in art school around 6th grade, the art teacher, she would give us a black sheet of paper that was covered in ink, and we would use pins and scrape away the ink, and there would be white lines. To me, that's what this always looked like. It was like backward art.
We didn't have that kind of money. We had to take like a piece of manila, and we had to use our crayons to like make it super dark, and then we would take our little safety scissors and take off part of the crayons that way.
Oh, that's pretty clever. I started watching a guy on YouTube who makes things out of cardboard because for a while I got into making cardboard crafts when I was teaching kindergarten in a private school. So we would like make things out, and we would make like basic toys. But this guy makes like then he would paint them and they look so cool. So not that I ever want to go back to teaching kindergarten. I want to go back to retiring. That's what I want. A Flynn. Did anybody remember Kazinti? I think they were a race created by why can't I think of that guy? He wrote he sued and won for the idea for the Terminator. Harlan Ellison. Apparently Harlan Ellison made a race called the Kazinti, and they somehow got incorporated into the cartoon Star Trek, and then they made them into D&D. But I always loved this idea of like these lion people. Oh, Larry Niven. Did I say the wrong? I love that somebody's corrected by nonsense. Always like the Flints. Yeah, and the Kazin. Am I saying that wrong? Wolverine. Is it really? I don't know. I'm being facetious. Like this. Who would ever use this thing? And here it is, the most useless creature of all D&D, the Flumph. Did anybody use a Flumph? Harlan Ellison didn't invent the Kazin. That was Larry Niven. Thank you. And I'm saying it right. It's all right. 50 points. 50 out of 100 points. Did anybody use the Flumph? What a horrible
I have not, but I'm thinking about it now.
Yeah. You should make an adventure where they only fight like flumps and flail snails and blindums.
Yeah, one great thing about a lot of these books is so many of those creatures have just been like abandoned by the wayside over the years that if you're playing with like a modern group, you can easily go back to these old books and just bring them in, and no one will have any idea what they're up against.
That's one of the things that I like to do was when I restarted my fantasy campaigns using V&V, I had to rewrite the rules for all of these monsters. And it's funny because there was a site, another Villains Vigilante site, that was publishing fantasy V&V as fantasy, and they were using my characters. I'll try to get a link to that. I think it's still, I think it's called the V&V Emporium. But like most people, they lose interest after a couple of years. So as I was rewriting them, I wanted them to be different so that you just didn't remember, oh, trolls don't like fire or whatever. Like one of the things I made goblins more fey. They were like
Hmm.
an insect type race. Like in my world,
Oh,
fays are insect based, and they use their, like, you know how moth has the like kind of dusty, like, you know what I mean, like a moth
uh-huh.
has dust on them if you
Yeah,
touch it.
yeah.
That's fairy dust, and that fairy dust is part of their glamour
Oh.
that makes them look human. So if iron touches it, it corrodes that fairy dust, and you see them as hags, which is more insect looking. So
Hmm.
goblins are locusts that just come running into a field, eat your food, eat everything, poop all over the place. They have vestigial wings that don't really work, and they don't have leather. It looks like they wear leather armor, but it's really a carapace. So it kind of threw. And forget about orcs. Orcs are terrifying in my world. Little Galtrid over here, of course, we had to little. This thing would fly around and land on our shoulders and try to touch us with the butt. It didn't do any damage, but it just the little butt wanted to touch us, and we were horrified about that. It was just like a gambado, a garbug.
Speaking of
Flying
art,
lobster is horrible today. I mean, that is terrifying.
yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at that little flying devil thing there. It kind of looks like he's pooping.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like to 11-year-old boys, we couldn't resist these Galtrits would just fly and land on our shoulders, and Carl would just try to have the little butt touch our flesh, you know. Ah! But now, as an adult, I'm thinking of a mix between a mosquito and a lobster is kind of terrifying.
I've got some of the something similar in my game.
Oh, okay. Let's see. It's pronounced pretty much the same as Wolverine. No needs to try. Okay, thank you. I'm always mispronouncing things. Okay, like a fog giant. Is there like do they have needs for these creatures? Like, why do you need a mountain giant? What's the difference between a mountain giant and all the other giants? Like, what
Uh,
it's like I
uh,
keep saying, it's a differentiation without distinction.
well, those live in the mountains. Cloud giants live in the cloud, like
Right.
Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah. Like, I don't know.
And usually, like I think, usually hill giants are sort of like the bottom tier giants
Yeah, they're like the
that are,
hillbillies of the giants, right?
yeah, and they're a lot easier. You get to cloud giants, just, you're getting your butt kicked pretty easy.
Yeah, and cloud giants are like the fantasy giants. They would have like a golden goose or something like that.
Hmm.
Where and we always used to like these were proto Wolverines. You know, you see that they have like Wolverine's hairstyle and hair.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, gibberlings.
they're
And now
about
I
five
don't
foot
know.
three.
Yeah, 5'3". Yeah, it says between 4 and 5 feet tall. Gith Yankee. I don't know about you guys, but I like, again. This is the creature on the cover. I kind of got like, I don't want to say obsessed with them, but I made like a bunch of adventures based on these guys, and I even
Mm.
brought them into my villains vigilante world. I don't know why. I kind of thought these were the coolest things.
Yeah, they sort of went out of fashion for a while, but they came back in, especially with the Baldur's Gate 3 game last year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of one of the main races.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. A Gorbel. I don't know if you remember George Goebel. He was in the Hollywood Squares. So, you know, of course, my friend Carl we were attacked by a Gorbel who would introduce himself as George. Again, make all of these useless creatures. A gorilla bear. There you go. I had an evil wizard, and he you know, he what he did was he was the progenitor of all of like owl bears and gorilla bears and everything. He was just like an evil wizard that just mixed DNA and created all of these monstrous. And he was the one that like threw them in a dungeon. Like they were like failed experiments. So that's how I use things like owl bears and land sharks and
Ah.
gorilla bears. You know, there were wizards tampering with things that shouldn't be tampered. I always thought this was like something that belonged in Gamma World,
Yeah.
or maybe have you ever done the Spelljammers, the flying through space?
I have read it. I've never played in it.
Yeah, me too. I always wanted to. I was working my way towards a Spelljammer campaign when COVID happened and ruined everything.
Oh.
So Grimlocks. These are just Morlocks, right? These
Hmm.
these are no different than H.G. Wells Morlocks. Oh, speaking of which, somebody said I mentioned H.G. Wells, and somebody in the comment. I'm scrolling back, but I missed your comment. What he called it, little wars. H.G. Wells. If whoever, I'm sorry, I missed it. The chat was going by so fast. Griffs, like there's no basis for this. Guardian Daemon, a Guardian Familiar, a Hellcat, which is, I mean, just a cool name, a Hellcat. And then, of course, the Horfox. Two 11-year-old boys. What do you think we did with the Horfox? Didn't know that
Well,
was ice and snow.
I mean, you know, if you're basing it on the Eastern myths, that would be the right interpretation.
So, yeah, I don't want to cure. I want to turn people into dinosaurs. Yeah, I do love that. I think that's funny. I don't know if that's like I've seen that post. Do you know what we're talking about? There's a picture of
Yeah, yeah,
Spider.
yeah. I saw
Yeah,
that one.
you could write DNA on the fly. You could. I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people. I don't know if we're supposed to make fun of that, but it always makes me laugh. Like, don't villains are villains because they're villains. And of course, we had the Horfox on the same page with the Hook horror, which became the Hooker. So 11-year-old boys without girls to keep us tame, we did stupid things. Giant hornets are terrifying because real hornets are terrifying. The Hound of it. And then, of course, there was the Huga. How do you say this? Hukava. But we always called
I'm
him
not
the
sure.
Hugava guy. So he was just like this undead who would show up and give us encouragement because he was a Hugava guy. We were stupid kids. We didn't take our D&D really seriously until probably like around 15 or 16. And then we went through a period where it was too serious, like joking and having fun
Hmm.
wasn't. I think that's a normal evolution. Like we were little kids just goofing around, nothing made sense. It didn't matter. There was no storytelling. And then we got into storytelling and it became silly, then became too serious, and like we would get mad at each other for not taking it seriously. And then I don't
Then
know.
girls came along.
Yeah. Then girls came along and rejected us, so then we got really into it. Everyone I knew always pronounced that heck of a, yeah, a heck of a guy. That's an Iron Cobra. Iron Cobra sounds like a metal band. A Jaculi, a Germaline. I always thought this was like a Brown Jenkins from H.P. Lovecraft just turned into a D&D
Hmm.
creature. But it is kind of scary. Or you know what else? I just thought of it now. Did you ever see Don't Be Afraid of the Dark? I think it was a made-for-TV
Maybe.
movie with Uncle Sam from My Three Sons. I think these might be. Go watch that. It is.
I don't know.
They remade it with Katie Holmes, but go watch the
Oh.
original one. Yeah, they remade it with Katie Holmes. It's a Cadman. To me, this was just the inferior displacer beast.
Yeah.
Kelpie. Now I know this was part of mythology. I forget
Yes.
which culture produced the Kelpie, but I always liked these to the point where I made a V&V villain that was like a Kelpie based creature. Iron
That's cool.
Cobra was a total Conan wizard stuff. Was there an Iron Cobra in it? I only read one Conan story. I read the first one, and I got to get back to Conan.
Oh, yeah. Conan's great. They have, I think it's called the Conan Chronicles, which has all of the Robert E. Howard Conan stories together.
Yeah, I bought a leather bound complete Conan.
Oh, that's probably
It's a
the one.
big Bible sized book.
Black color.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's got black and it's got gold written on it. It just says
Yeah,
Conan.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, Kelpie is Irish. Okay, Kenku. I always thought like in Japan they have the Tengu. Is this the same thing? But anyway, this is just cool. Like to the point, my friends wanted to play this as a character class, and I wouldn't. You can only play the character classes as described by the book until one of my friends like just demanded to be a centaur. So we let him be a centaur. At one point, I was like, "It's supposed to be fun. You want to be a centaur? Be a centaur."
Yeah, that's kind of the problem with the newest edition is they have like too much variety of creatures you can play. Um,
And they're getting
they
rid of like the race distinctions. Like if you're going to be a
yeah
centaur, but you can't have like a diversion to cities or something like that, then what good is being a centaur? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
you're going to be a
Well, they
halfling, but you get the same movement rate as an elf. Then why be a halfling?
yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That's the thing. If you go back to the first version, um, you were pretty likely to die. So you always had backup characters.
Right.
If you were playing a standard human, it was really hard to survive, but you could go to the highest level. So after you pass a certain point, your character's pretty good. Whereas if you pick like an elf or a dwarf or whatever, you got special abilities like seeing in the dark and finding traps and stuff like that, that would help you survive those early levels. But you were capped at how high you could level the character up. So it was really a trade-off. Which do you want to do, and that's where they went wrong. They they got rid of stats being based on race, and they said it's going to be based on background. Which, okay, that's fine. Somebody who's a blacksmith should be stronger, you would think. But the problem is, then they got rid of everything negative based on the
Right.
races, and it's like, well, why would you ever pick human? Number one, and then what's the difference? That was part of the fun, is seeing like, well, can I make it, being extra stupid, or if I'm too big to really hide, would I be a good thief?
It's funny that you said that because like I thought backgrounds were important, but we would pick the backgrounds like so you would roll out your
Mm-hmm.
characters. And I had a little. I'm sure every DM has their own little finagle factor or whatever. So then you made up your character. You got an 18 strength, you got an 18 endurance, you got
Mm-hmm.
a 4 agility, and a 3 intelligence. Then you're like, okay, so I'm a laborer, and then you made up your background based on your stats because you're 14, 15, 16 years old. You already but you obviously weren't a wizard. You know what I mean? You didn't have a
Yeah.
scholarly background with those stats. So your stats kind of, you picked a background. And then once you picked your background, you started giving yourself a little bit of flavor. Like, you know what I mean? Like you kind of make your character fit in through the numbers. I thought that was a lot of fun. Like if you wanted to be a paladin and you just like, I want to be a paladin. So you'd roll all your numbers and then like, what do you have to 17 charisma? So I would just take your best stat, unless it was a natural 17 or 18. Your best stat was a 14. Okay, you got your 17 charisma because you want to be a paladin, and then so you could be. Otherwise, but then I wouldn't let you do that all the time because if you had whatever I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of rambling over here, but you get what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
you elves are elves, and Gygax made no bones about it. Elves were better than humans. They had so many advantages. So
Mm-hmm.
when I
But they
when I
couldn't level up as high.
right. I of course I did away with that. I don't know why, because nobody in my campaign, nobody ever made it to 12th level anyway. Everybody died. I was pretty harsh. Magic is always rare.
Mm-hmm.
Like psionics, I thought psionics added an unnecessary complication. So
Yeah.
unless you just like, I want to be a psionicist, you never rolled for psionics or anything like that. And I think only one player wanted to be a psionicist character. But other than that, and I limited who was elves because in my world, elves were around for hundreds. They knew secrets that humans didn't know, and therefore, like the players would have a little bit too much information. So I remember this one girl; she wanted to be an elf. So, but she was like, "I want to be an elf barbarian."
Mm-hmm.
So she came from the wastes that she was separated from the high elves. So it was perfectly good that she did. She's like, no, I don't want to know secrets. That's the whole thing. Like my people got stranded. So, but I just like the idea that she had all the attributes of an elf, but whatever. I'm rambling. Let's all make fun of this Kilmoise. The Kuatoa, somebody already said it in the chat. Straight. Yeah, these are deep ones. These are full on deep ones. And the way I justify it in my game is Kutoa, or I'm sure I'm going to get mangled how I pronounce it, Kuatoa. This is what they call themselves. But us, we call them deep ones. And deep ones is a blanket term for a whole bunch of mysterious races that live in the water. Trying to explain to kids who discovered D&D through Critical Role that humans are meant to be the predominant race is like, yes. Uh, I had when I started up my V&V campaign in I think it was 2015. So we played from 2015 to the beginning of the lockdowns with COVID. And for the most part, we were like three sessions away from finishing the campaign. I'm so mad, but it was clear that these guys were all interested in D&D from Critical Role, and I'm like, I like, you're not actors, you're not. When this isn't a group of theater kids, you know what I mean. It's grognards, piece of paper. Like I didn't use props. I didn't, I barely made funny voices, you know what I mean. But
Mm-hmm.
I like to think we had fun. We showed up every Friday night for years,
I don't have a problem. I think the people who came into the hobby during Critical Role sort of get a bad rap because it's like, oh, this looks like fun. I want to try playing it. I think that there were other people who snuck in with those new people who came in from Critical Role, who were the ones that, orcs or black people, even though now they're Mexicans.
Yeah.
You must do this, you can't do that. Whereas, before it was like, if I'm running the game, I'm going to run my table how I want to run it. You can play or find another table, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
And
I think it's overall been a positive. I think the show is a positive overall.
you remember the monster manual, the orcs had pig heads. So I was just like, how can you mistake them for anything? They were just pig-headed humans. They're obviously fantasy creatures. And that's what I thought orcs were until I saw the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings movie. This is so cool.
Yeah.
How cool is this? I always look at this. This is like the example that I bring of a motion in art. Like, this guy swung this heavy sword. The way his body is positioned, the way his legs are spread, this was an effort to swing this mighty sword, and it hit this, like right here where the sword was, is where it made contact with this creature's throat and forced him back. It as it's fallen back. I love this. This is always an example of movement, connect, mass, gravity, everything in art. I love this. And I love these old school, lizard creatures, Did you ever read the Elric of Melnibone books?
No, but it's on my list. I've heard that they're great.
They're really good. The first six books are great. And one of them, Elric is exploring the unknown seas, and he has to, there's like a volcanic sea that's warm and vaporous, and people don't go there. Well, of course he goes there, and he comes across like an abandoned city, like where the earliest people lived, and it's inhabited by lizard people. Oh, and they throw these discs. And they had brass shields and brass swords, like ancient Greek. To me, that's how lizard people are. I still remember that fight in my head. And then the lava children. Everybody hates them. Can we get it? Can we get an amen? Does any standouts who like lava children? It's just horrible. The Lizard King.
Speaking of the difference in art too, is so I've been going through this website ArtStation, which is like a portfolio website for people who produce art and people who want to purchase art, like in a professional context. And man, I've been going through so many, and I can't tell you how many people are basically doing like headshots. It'll be like, here's this creature, and here's a vampire, or Githyanki or whatever, and it'll be like either just like head and shoulders, or maybe like from the waist up, or if it's a full body, they're just standing there. Very, very few of these have any action in it, whereas that seemed to be like standard, back in the 70s and 80s. Like, you had to know how to make action scenes, whereas like now it's just like people are posing for their medieval Instagram or something.
I love this comment. Lava Child, the Alfred E. Newman of D&D. And it's funny, I just realized it now that this said magnesium spirit. I've been mispronouncing that my whole life. And of course, since there's no picture, I can't get into it. And magnesium spirit sounds weird. A Montari, measles. Anybody care about measles? But I do love this, that it's just strangling somebody in the dark. A mean lock. It's so British. Mephits. What are these more various like elemental type beings? Anybody use any of these? The Mesodemon. Mites. Russ. A Necrophidius, a death worm. I remember this player Joe. He played with me like 3 or 4 times. Good guy, and he wanted to DM, so we did a practice session. And I was like, "How do you do it?" So I told him what all these rules, because when I DM, I just give the player enough to get playing. They don't need to know what hit dice are and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they get enough to run their character. So I had to give a rundown on all the creatures. So he just sat like 10 minutes and wrote an adventure. And he picked this Necrophidius as the big baddie. And he did everything for hit dice too. So he rolled 2 8-sided dice. This thing had 4 hit points, and I just came and killed it on the first hit. And he was like, well, that was underwhelming as my first adventure. But it's like, I was like, Joe, it worked in that it taught you the rules. But I'll never forget that. A needle man. So it's this like a cactus humanoid. I would like this better because it's a intelligent plant. If it did look more cactus-like.
Yeah.
And fired. And then the Nilbog, this stupid reverse goblin. It's goblin spelled backwards. The more you hit it, the more it heals. So you have to cast healing magic on it to kill it. The cat of 9 tails. Every time you kill it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which is kind of cool. A Norker. Something just screams like fundamentally British about a Norker. That's such a British word. A Nicodemon. Now, I never understood the difference between demons and daemons. Like, I know the demons were like chaotic evil and lived in the abyss, and then the daemons were like neutral evil. But like, to me, it was just like the same spelling of like just a different spelling of the same word, demons and daemons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. They seem to have dropped that. There's in the current editions, there's big differences between demons and devils, but I don't know that demons and daemons still have any difference anymore.
Right. And do you remember when, like, I guess in the 90s when they dropped all like devils and demonic references to D&Ds, like they called them fiends.
Yeah, and they got rid of all the drugs.
They got rid of drugs.
Yeah, first edition there were a ton of drugs, and like there's rules for like how long it would take you to come down from a high.
Oh yes,
like
yes, being drunk. Yes, there was a 10%
being drunk
chance.
could save you. You gain hit points for it.
I remember there was a if under attack there was a flat 10% chance of sobering up instantly, plus 1% per damage. It was funny that there was a chart. So I had a friend Joe who that was his thing. He would always be drunk because it gave you extra hit points and stuff like that. And he would get so mad when he made the sobriety test. That's funny that you brought that up. That's so funny. An Augrillion. This is like a half ogre, half human. Yeah, the Satanic Panic. Yeah. They got rid of like they called angels like devas or something like that. And
Yep.
The devils were fiends, and I forget what they called demons. Demons had another like chaons or something like that. And to me, it just ruined the flavor. I like that. And I remember my mother sitting. I went to Catholic school. My mother was an Irish Catholic, and I remember my mother asking me a lot of questions about D&D, and I guess I satisfied her answers. It's not like she took it away from me.
Were you noticing Satanic Panic problems back in the 70s, or was it more of an 80s thing?
Oh, definitely the 80s.
Okay.
In the 70s, anything went. And,
Yeah.
like maybe I was young and didn't notice it, but keep in mind in the 70s you had rock stars dating 14-year-old girls and David Bowie dressing up like a girl, and then you had like all of that T-Rex and everything like that, the glam rock, and it really like a lot like today, but it was kind of understood that it was all like kayfabe. And then the
Yeah.
80s came, like with the Reagan years. That was when that Tom Hanks movie came out, you know, and the beginning of the Satanic Panic. I remember
Oh yes.
there was a group that went around to churches, and it was called This Rock Is Not Our Rock, and they talked about like satanic messages and music, and
Hmm.
Led Zeppelin would use backwards masking to get like, remember Queen,
Oh yeah.
another one bites the dust, another one bites the dust. If you played that backwards, supposedly it said, it's fun to smoke marijuana. It's fun to smoke marijuana. All that was all big. And D&D, the Satanic Panic, was like, that was like the little sister to that, I could
Yeah.
compare it to like the Communist Panic in the 50s. And then the Comics Code Authority was like a minor part of that. But I remember the whole rock and roll backmasking was a big freaking deal. And then the D&D was like a smaller subset of that.
Yeah. It's funny that the Comics Code Authority was started by a communist.
Oh, who started it?
Ah, man, I can't think of the guy's name. Let me search it up. But he was a member of the Frankfurt School.
Oh, okay. Okay. Maze is a monster. I got to watch it. I've never actually watched it.
That's it. Dr. Frederick Wortham. He
Oh,
wrote
yes.
this book, Seduction of the Innocents.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. He didn't create the Comics Code Authority, but he created the need for it. Yes.
Yeah, he wrote the book, and then he testified before Congress because it was about youth delinquency.
Right.
Because they were wearing T-shirts and jeans and had flat tops in the 50s and stuff like that.
Yeah. And he found that like juvenile delinquents, when they were in the JD homes, they would read comic books.
Yeah.
But everybody was reading comic books,
Exactly.
even the good kids back in the 50s. So it was a false equivalency. Yeah, I'm trying. If anybody could find, I'm trying to get an original copy of Frederick Wortham's Seduction of the Innocent book. I bought what I thought was it, but it was somebody else's notes about it. So I'm trying to get an original copy of that book.
I think I've seen it on archive.org. If you want to read it online.
Yeah, I've seen online, but I want a physical copy. Like to me, that's a part of history.
So
That's a historical document.
There's a really good book called Boobs of Steel. No, it's a legit book written by.
You read it from the articles. I understand.
It's written by a guy named J. Ishiro Finney. He does comic books as well. But this is a serious look back specifically at why people hate breasts and also how to write female character types. So Ishii, his wife, worked at DC Comics, and she was an editor. And I've met them, and she is, shall we say, well endowed.
As my mother would say, she's healthy.
Yeah, she's extremely healthy. And she was getting the Mean Girls treatment by the people at DC because she was rather large, and basically got forced out because of her bust size.
Wow.
And so it always bothered Ishii, like, why this happened. Where did these tropes come from? And Werther, the guy who wrote Seduction of the Innocents, he really had a thing against Wonder Woman, specifically for her busts. And he goes through and he documents the whole thing. So if anybody wants to know, like, the history of, like the sort of this, where we got to where we are with feminism in the comic book industry, and breaking up how to write female archetypes, highly recommend Boobs of Steel.
What's the man's name? Ishii what?
J. Ishiro Finney.
And what's the wife's name? She was an editor for DC?
Yeah, it is Kat Rocha. She was. She's not now.
I got to look her up for research purposes.
Actually, they have some really good comics. If you like Lovecraft,
my wife is giving me the mad eye. Yeah.
They've got a really good series, Case File Arkham, which is like a mashup of like noir detective genre with Lovecraft. It's fantastic.
Oh, I know. I've looked that up because I got really into the Arkham Horror board game, and as looking up, like, there was a lot of homebrew stuff that people made, and I read all of that stuff. It's funny. I guess, these nerd circles aren't really that big.
No,
This
not that
creature,
much.
does anybody know how to pronounce this? Pengalian. But this is truly a horrifying creature. And it was funny because I looked at a D&D site just recently, and they were talking about lost monsters from D&D that kids today would just would be horrified by, and they talked about this. And I remember at the time reading, are you familiar with this creature?
Is this one of the ones where you lose a level?
I hate that, the energy drain. I was talking about that last, but it's a female vampire. I think it's from Brazil. I think it's a Brazilian vampire or a South American vampire. I forget exactly where, but it's a woman by day, and it could come out during the day, but at night, the head pulls out of the body, and with it all of the internal organs, and then the long hair spreads out and flaps wings, and she goes around eating people, and then the organs swell up with blood so that it can't get back into the body, so it has to soak in vinegar to shrink the organs and stick. So you could tell it was a Pengalian by a stench of vinegar. It's just wonderfully like localized folklore. This is the kind of stuff I love in D&D. No, I never used one, but I would love to. I just think just how horrific is this? Like this would look good in here's a picture of when eating it in what do they call that? What is the horror D&D? I can't think of it now. Ravenloft.
Uh-huh.
The Perniculin, just a giant bug. Phantom Stalker. Again, this looks like sci-fi rather than D&D. A protein polymorph. This doesn't sound right. Intelligent caveman bears. Kind of cool. I could see that. That to me, that was like a monstrous Ewok. Quippers. I have used quippers because that is really like rot grubs, and you want to piss off your players. Use rot grubs and quippers. A school of creatures with like one hit point, but they swarm you. It's really a horrific way to die. I never understood the purpose of this. This is just like a primitive human. You know what I mean? Like this is like a Sentinel Island resident. You know what I mean? You don't need a monster class for that. You just
you got to pad the page count.
Yeah, well, yeah. Somebody wrote it, sent it to and I think it achieved a number of votes, and that's why it got to the book. A retriever, a kayak, evil giants, but a revenant. I made rules like when I brought everything into my superhero game. I made revenants are like the catch-all phrase for like slashers, like Jason and Michael Myers. They're revenants, and they. I made special rules for like the murderous dead.
They
made that action, you don't see that too much anymore. Like another species of like subterranean water buffaloes. Like I appreciate the effort, but who cares? A Sandman. As much as I love this art, I've never used it.
See, that's what most modern illustrations and painting look like to me. Like just that, which is it's not bad, but it doesn't like really give me a sense of atmosphere or convey action or anything.
Oh, Ishii, what channel should I look for? On Ishii's, what's the name of his channel? I'll check it out.
I think it's J Ishiro Finney. They've got a couple.
Well, could you send me through Twitter some DMs? Yeah. I'm interested in this stuff. A screaming devilkin. Who cares? This is cool. A shadow demon. Got to admit, cool goes a long way. A sheet ghoul and a sheet phantom. A shocker. Just an electric being. Now, skeleton warriors are cool. What is the difference? Like, it's just like a more powerful zombie, or an armored zombie or an armored skeleton. A skull. Here you go. Here's the kind of art you're talking about.
Yep.
I don't know why, but the sleds, I was fascinated by them. I love the sleds. I love the sled. And a little bit of insider. If all 44 of us could keep a secret, uh, the creature that Mary Sue fights in issue 2 of Heroic Tales is a gray slad. Okay, you'll okay. Keep that a
Yep.
secret. I don't want to get sued. But I love these toad-like beings. I don't know
They got a
why.
great feature set.
Yeah,
To me, those are, other versions of deep ones.
yeah. I'm trying to remember. Do I? Yeah, they're from like beyond reality, which is what I like. Yeah. What is this comment? I was never really a fan of sled and Modrons, but I like the complexity of them. And it's funny because I wanted to like the Modrons, and I thought about. I'm making a head motion like you could see my face, like I'm doing this to my head. But I thought about them and thought about them, but I just couldn't. I just couldn't fit them into my concept of the fantasy world. The Lord of the Insane. I just love the way this looks. Yorgel, a Snead, the Sons of Kios. I kind of like to me, like these. I didn't play the game. What's it called? The Last of Us with the flower
Oh, uh huh.
zombies.
Yeah.
These to me like were the prototype for the flower zombies. So these were zombies that had like grubs, and to me, I always thought that the grubs were like the animating force of the zombies, and then these grubs,
Mm.
like they would grab you, and the grubs would get into your skin and then turn you into a carrier. So like, that's the way I interpreted these or changed them or whatever. But so I was a big fan of this. So the Kios would be the names of these grubs that were in throughout these. So they weren't so much undead as they were like how like there's that ant that'll or wasp. I forget which insect that'll take
Oh.
over another insect and use them as
Yeah, yeah.
a
Or,
host
or
or as
there's,
a parasitic organism.
yeah, I know there's a fungus that'll take over ants.
Yes, so that's what to my way. And then of course these grubs would mature and turn into something else. That again, that's me overthinking things. Stun jelly, a susurrus. A susurrus is a real word meaning a loud cacophonious noise, but I kind of like this. It's like a bunch of like weeds with the wind would go through it, it would make a noise and thorns. It's kind of a cool concept. I couldn't pronounce it, so I never used them. Snivnerblin. Differentiation without distinction. A symbiotic jelly. Tabaxi. Tentamorts. This was very like to me this seemed like a very Gygaxian type of creature. But these were the Triffids, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I don't know what this. I can't pronounce this. It's like a camouflage creature. Rockworm. Aqua. Again, did anybody use any of these? A Thork. Throat leeches.
Yes. See, I use a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, little horrible things like that are horrible and unfair and wonderful at the same time. A tiger fly. Here's another. This is probably the second most useless creature next to the Flumph. Triafeg. I don't know. It's got the belly, the mouth, in the belly. A Trillock. Yeah, these are just like emanations of negative energy. I guess that could be cool now that I said it out loud. Trolls. See, I like these depictions of trolls more than that super skinny depiction of trolls from the Monster Manual. And here you go.
Mhm.
This looks like more like Sunday cartoons.
Yeah,
This
yeah, yeah.
like that old mix between that old school art, a spirit troll, tweens. I don't know. It just seemed an umploy. I don't know what is this from. I can't even pronounce it. Urchins. Urchins are marine creatures. Okay, a vision. A Vodyanoi. This sounds like a Russian, but it's the sea Umbra Hulk.
Ah.
A Vault. And a Vortex. Whipweed.
I love that illustration.
Yeah, that is cool. That's Errol Otis. I love Errol Otis. That the squiggly lines and bubbling, gurgling. Like he conveys movement really well. Oh, Wither Stench, a skunk beast. So it's like more
Mm-hmm.
horror. It's a monstrous version of a skunk. A Zill, and then of course the Zvart, which we pronounced fart. And for 11-year-old boys, these guys would just come attack us and farting on us all the time. And the Yellow Musk Creeper. Oh yeah, okay. So this is the flower that created the Yellow Musk Zombie. I knew I remembered that. So this is from that The Last of Us. They must have seen this. I can't believe that all those people who made that game didn't know about this the yellow musk. So it's a flower that it grows on corpses and animates the corpses, and then when you get killed, you get the pollen on it, and you sprout the yellow musk. I think it's really cool idea. And then look at that. I can't read the Zangorian. I'm sure that. Did you use these charts? Like, did you allow for random magic items to just show up in the
Yeah, I've done it both ways. I've had like where you're going to find like a magic sword, that has such and such properties. I've done things like that. And then I've done where I basically give people things that I know that they would want, like, oh, the dwarf wants a magic axe and stuff like that. But I have to say that it's a lot more satisfying for most people if you do random treasures and random magic items, because then they get like just the craziest things, and it's up to them to figure out how to make use of it.
And did you do like there was charts, like if you found armor, 80% of it fit
Mhm.
fit a human and 20% felt, oh wow, you got +5 plate mail, but it's halfling sized. When you used
Yeah,
all.
they kind of changed that in fifth edition to where, because it's magic, like it will adjust itself to your size. I'm not a big fan of that, but
They're trying. That seems to me they're just eliminating any inconvenience.
yes.
You know, like I don't know. But let
Plus,
me ask you this: when you
mhm.
used it, did you roll it after the combat, or did you roll it before that you even played? So you knew what the
Oh,
magic items were in the treasure trove
um,
before the monster.
I I would generally do it after, unless there was a possibility that players had a chance to use it.
See,
In
that's
which case, I would do before.
when I started playing. It was like right in front of them. Okay, treasure type A. Oh, okay. And then like they fought these orcs, and then somebody said, "Well, why didn't the orc use that like +2 sword?" And I'm like, And then that became. I started rolling out. So they would walk into the orc treasure and the orcs would have the magic bows already. Why wouldn't they use them? Why would they use the piece of garbage weapons and leave all the magic weapons? Unless they were super unintelligent, you know what I mean? But if they
Mhm.
were normal intelligence, they would use this stuff.
Yeah,
More Bill
but I
Willingham
mean,
artwork.
most of the stuff is going to be like gold or gems. Like, what are
Right,
they going to do? Throw gold coins at the enemy or something? So
right,
to
right.
some extent, it doesn't matter that much. But I would always make them roll, so then they can't blame me when they get crap.
How about did because I got into like, okay, there's a chart, so it would be like a gold necklace with amethyst. There was like all
Hmm.
these charts, and then it would. But I never told them how much it was. I would write it down on an index card, so when they haggled, they would be, unless they had like some sort of like a jeweler or appraisal or something like that. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If
90.
somebody has some skill for like being able to appraise these things, then I would give them a worth. Otherwise, I'd just be like, oh, it's this kind of stone. It's red, as far as you can tell.
Right. I love these Bill Willingham artwork.
Yeah.
Look at this Earl Otis over here. That is just awesome. And then we got this Jeff D with this Cyclops looking thing. I haven't looked at these in so long. There's more Bill Willingham. I just recognized his he has like a distinctive curve in his artwork.
Hmm.
Yeah, look at this.
Yeah, it's a sad
Jeff
state of
D.
affairs. I think when you look at a lot of people today, like they just don't know how to ink like that anymore.
Yeah. It's Roslov, this dragon. This is so cool. You almost feel bad for this creature. It's just clutching onto a scroll. What about scrolls? How did scrolls work in your game?
Well, it depends. I allow them to make scrolls if they have a wizard who's, and they want to get the materials. I have no problem with them making it. My game is fairly low magic. Plus, in 5e, it's almost more like superheroes as opposed to like adventurers.
Oh, okay.
Because you get so many powers as you level up. Like they don't really need it as much. But that stuff is there. It's just very, very rare. And in some of the places, it's controlled. Like there are these paladins called the Zealots of Twilight who will just murder you and your whole family if you're found with a magic item or somehow having been able to use arcane magic.
Is this in your campaign, or is this like
yeah?
Setting? Oh, okay. Well, how do you feel about like magic stores where you could just go in and buy magic items?
See, for me, that never really made sense unless you're going to go
Right.
all in. And if you go all in, they're basically living in a medieval version of the Jetsons, right? Because why wouldn't you have like a magic box that kept your food cold? Why wouldn't you have magic lamps that you just click on and they don't use fuel or wax and they burn cleanly? Like it doesn't make sense to me if magic is so common, you can just go to a store and buy whatever you want.
Right.
If it's not common in that setting. So that's why for me, it's got to be like if you get a magic sword, like it's like, whoa, a magic sword. So, I like to keep it simple, so otherwise it's not impressive.
I remember when we first started playing, even before Carl, it was my sister-in-law's cousin. He lived in Guam, and he would come like once or twice a year and visit, and he would bring all his D&D books, and he would teach us. And he was like, I play Monty Hall, and it was just everywhere you looked, there was magic. And then, that's just the way we played because we thought that's how you, and somewhere along the line, I was just like, what good is, if everything's magic, then nothing's magic. So I made magic super scarce to the point where like guys were like, oh my God, a +1 sword. And then I was like, how do they know it's a +1 sword? So I would give them a description of the weapon. They didn't know what it was called. They would have this sword that they found, and then I would have an index card. Oh, what sword are you using? And then they would roll the dice, and they're like, I hit on a 12, and you could see them trying to figure out what the plus of the sword. So they, after a while, I would just give them the index card when I figured like they used it long enough. Like, but at first nobody knew what the magic items were. Like, potions, they were like, they didn't know what they were until they chugged them, unless they got alchemical skills and could test them and things like that. Like, and it was like all healing potions were blue and all poison potions were green either. Each potion was its own unique thing. So it was almost like they didn't trust any magic that I gave them, to the point where it was almost not fun. It became like a chore. So I kind of leveled out, eased up a little bit, but I still don't think that you should know what a magic item is, its name, its history, just by touching it.
Yeah. Well, I know in later editions there are spells that will allow you to identify it. So if you have the proper kind of magic user, you could figure it out, or you could find someone who would know.
Right. They would pay people. Did you allow your players to create their own spells?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
if they want.
That's one of the things that, being a wizard in my game, like every wizard had a spell book, and they had like 8 spells written in the spell book. They had read magic and detect magic. Otherwise they weren't a real wizard. And then the other spells was either random or they just made, please let me have this. And that was it. They had the 4 spells or the 8 spells in their book. So when they got scrolls, they never used them to read. Like they copy down the spells to put them in their spell book. That was like the main way of so they could be like 7th level but not have enough spells because they just didn't find them. And I always said, like, was up to me to drip release spells. So then they got big on researching and creating their own spells. Like one guy got tired of not having Fireball, and he made a compelling argument. If the spell Fireball already exists, it should be easier to research than making up. I was like, okay, but that became fun. Like these wizards were making their own spell books.
Yeah, in 5e, it's in the newest version, it's similar but a little different. I think every time you level up, you get to say you researched 2 spells, and you could take 2 spells off the list. But
Okay,
otherwise, you have to find it like from a scroll, from someone who can teach you, or you have to do your own research. And they have in the Dungeon Master's Guide, they have like how you figure out how much it would cost financially and time
right,
wise, how to research your own spell. So, like if it's instead of the acid arrow, it's John's acid arrow.
right.
Maybe it would do extra damage, or like some would splash onto somebody else. So it's not just a one person target.
I remember like one of the things all the magic users were heavily suggested by other wizards to join an order.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the benefits of joining an order was they had spell books that were not publicly, but like within the order, like you were
Mm-hmm.
given this, like, okay, you've proven yourself, you have access to this library. There'd be like the novice library, the intermediate, journeyman, and then the advanced library. But you also had to share anything that you found,
Mm-hmm.
because that was one of the things is rogue wizards were frowned upon, and basically like just think of like the unions. Like, what do you mean you're not a teamster? It's in the middle of the night, all of a sudden your buildings would the windows would break. It was
Yeah.
you were pressured to join the order. And my friend Daniel's character refused to join an order, but he found such a powerful artifact that he himself didn't realize how powerful. So he became famous just as the guy that carried the artifact, and none of the other wizards actually wanted to mess with him, but he didn't understand how powerful it was. So he kept the orders, and then there was different competing orders. There was this
Mm-hmm.
the more lawful order, the more chaotic order. But I don't know. Like I like the idea of medieval guilds and everything. Yeah, access to a library is a powerful motivator.
Yep.
How did you run clerics in your like
Oh.
like in your party? Was there like a cleric of Ta and a cleric of Odin in the same group? Because to me, it was like unless there was extenuating circumstances, this area was one culture.
Yeah, well, so this is kind of one of the places where I think D&D falls apart a little bit. I've got an older series of videos on my channel called "Why Religion Sucks in D&D and How to Fix It," and one of the problems is that it tries to like allow you to play with like pantheons of gods, but it still acts like in a very bipolar world where there's an ultimate good and an ultimate evil, and it sort of doesn't work. So for me, for the religious orders, you can. It's well, it depends where you come from. So there's one country I have called the Empire of the Undying Sun, and everybody there worships the Black Ram, and that's it. Because if you don't, they'll bleed you to death.
Okay.
But in other areas, there's like a sort of a state-sponsored pantheon, but then you're also allowed to worship like different local gods or spirits, assuming that it doesn't interfere with the government. So I let them do what they want. Like in my test campaign right now, I've got a paladin who worships this goddess. She's the goddess of fertility and beer, and he's a dwarf. And before terrible things happened to the city, his family owned a bar, and so part of the joke is that if you're drinking beer, you're liable to make many more children. But it's to me, in general, I leave it up to the player, like how far they want to push it. Like
But you
if
make
you
up your
are,
own pantheon then.
yeah, I wouldn't mind if somebody wanted to use like a pre-made god or something. But I think that you sort of have to take into consideration cultural things, just in the sense of like in my game, if you worship the Black Ram, you're trying to promote that religion to everybody that you come in contact with. You want to convince them of its superiority and why they should worship the ram, because he will give you knowledge from beyond the stars. Whereas like a lot of these other ones, like the goddess of drinking and fertility, for her it's more, she doesn't necessarily care if she has a lot of worshipers. It's more about you have to fight things that would promote death or whatever. And like for example, this guy, there's a tournament that you enter, and when you win, assuming you win, you can ask a god a question. Well, it turns out that they have human sacrifices, and they put people into a bronze ram and they light it on fire. And as the people are broiling to death, the god answers the question. So they could have chosen like, no, we don't want to take part of this. But the player's like, yeah, I'm cool. So he lost all of his powers because he went against his goddess's orders.
It's funny in my superhero world. There's secret society, the Brotherhood of the Ram. Which,
interesting.
It's mostly military people, and they're it's basically Mithras worship. So it's like it's a cult that goes beyond borders. So it's like a lot of generals, military guys, and they all. And you'll see sooner or later, if I make it to it, people will wear like a ram ring, and that's how they identify each other. So, of course, it was in comic books, the politicians, the senators, and the generals are always bad guys. So, when I introduce you to the general character, when I reveal he's a bad guy, you shouldn't be too shocked. But I made up my own pantheon of gods for my D&D game, loosely based on like there's always a Sky Father, there's always a god of the, you know what I mean. But I didn't want people like, nah, that doesn't work because Apollo would do this and stuff. So like I made like the cultural god, and then I also had the older gods that are suppressed. But I realized it got to be a lot of work, because then I had to
Well, that's why I sort of let players pick their own, and then I'll just sort of like reflavor a god based on what they do. If they're like, the dwarf, he's like, I want like the god of alcohol. It's like, okay, well, alcohol. Well, you make beer from grain, and if it's grain, you would have the harvest, and harvest goes with fertility. So there you go. And so for me, it's easier just to like have all those other gods like in the background. Like, yeah, they're there, but only focus on the ones that they really want to interact with.
Now, do you let your players multi-class?
Well, yeah, for my test campaigns, I'm doing it because I need to figure out like how people would screw up my campaign guide. So I have to like work out all the bugs. So like, okay, you can multi-class if you want.
Yeah, for my fantasy, I just did away with the concept of classes altogether.
Nice.
Everybody just starts out as whatever. And if you're an elf, I'll give you this, whatever. But if you want to be a thief and you want to wear plate mail and carry a two-handed sword, you're not very sneaky. If you want to be a wizard, but you're spending all your training bonuses in strength and not intelligence, then you're a very limited wizard. And it's funny because my players, like, they didn't really like it. I thought it gave you the freedom to make whatever you want. You want to be a ranger? There's no class of ranger. You're just a fighter who learns to track and hunt, and camp. If you want to call yourself a thief, why couldn't a wizard be a thief? You're going to make stealing spells and stuff like that. A thief is just what you do. It's not a class. I don't like that limitation of classes. And I know we were already talking about like a sorcerer to me is not so much a wizard as you get your power from a source. So like either a demon or god or magic object or something. You're
That
tapping the
yeah.
source.
So to me, that's see, I don't like how they did that. Like in the fifth edition, they have a wizard, which is just you study magic and you figure it
Right.
out. You have a sorcerer, which you, your magic comes from a lineage. So they say like you have the blood of dragons in you, or you have like some fey blood or something like that. And then there's a warlock class, which is where you make like a Faustian deal with some entity, or maybe it could be from like an intelligent object, basically.
Oh, okay.
But
I like
but
those differentiates are pretty good.
see, to
And
me,
what is a mage then? Is a mage just a catch-all phrase for any magic user, or is that a
uh, it would technically be under wizard, I think. But
okay?
see, to me, the problem is there's not like if you're talking about a magic user, there's not enough distinction in that. Like to me, they should all be subclasses of the same thing. Like a warlock where you get your power from like a spirit or something. That should be under a cleric, as far as I'm concerned, because you have to keep in line with whatever your patron wants, right? Well,
Right.
it's the same thing. Uh, you have to do what your god wants, or your powers go away.
I always magic user is the thing, and then there's wizards and
Hmm.
priests and clerics are magic users. You know what I mean? But I always like a sorcerer is you meet this Yog Sagoth type creature and he bestows upon you power. You're
Hmm.
invoking Yog. But if you worship this, then you're a priest. If you don't worship this deity, if you just have like a Faustian deal, to me that's a sorcerer. You're borrowing his ability. And a warlock, the etymology of the word warlock means oath breaker. So
Hmm.
I like you make a deal with this source, and then you break it, you become a warlock. So like
Yeah.
that source's minions hate you. You borrowed power and then broke the deal. You're a deal breaker. Nobody likes that.
Yeah, I think if so, to me, some ways in 1E, things were made a little bit more sense. Like generally, you couldn't start as a paladin; you had to start as a fighter, and eventually, or was it a cleric? And then you could become a paladin. Just like you didn't start as a bard, eventually you could become a bard. I think if they had stuff like that, like if, like you were saying, if there were some class that was like the Oathbreaker, where either it's religious or you have some deity or whatever that gives you the power, and then you break your oath, you still retain some of that power, but it's like perverted and cursed. Like I think that would be cool, but the problem
Yeah,
is when you have all those options from the start, I think it's kind of confusing for people.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
And
Like
to me, that's sort of
to
the
me, to be
problem
a
with
warlock is something that happens down the line. You shouldn't
yeah,
start out as a warlock. I agree with you. I
exactly.
never thought about that, but maybe you become a paladin later on. That's kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
like
is pretty cool. And
I
have you
kind
ever
of
played
like
a bard? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
I have not played a bard. I wouldn't. Oh, I did play a bard one time in a one shot. His name was Tycho Haxon. He had the intelligence of a Derek Zoolander, the douchiness of Justin Bieber, and the sexual confidence of Pepe Le Pew. I gave him absolutely no offensive spells. His goal was to go around the world to be the greatest troubadour in all the world, the king of troubadours, and everything he did in bat, like everything spell he had was based on him performing in concerts.
I got to tell you, when my players said they wanted to play a bard, I didn't want to say you can't be a bard, but I did not want people to be a bard. That just meant you weren't playing right. That just meant you wanted to mess with the game. You know, I'm not a big fan of the bard class. What can we think of, like in Lord of the Rings or any fantasy literature? Are there any bard characters that are like it's portrayed in D&D? They're always like NPCs. They're
Uh,
not main characters.
yeah, well, there's I can't think of the name. The guy from the Witcher series.
Yeah, I hate that.
Uh,
I hate the show. First season.
I think you could do it if you made them sort of either like thieves or you made them spies. It would work. Like a bard, you could go to country, you're just performing, and then you like steal the king's daughter or something, like that could work.
That could work. Yeah, that could work. The Bard
But
Seer Taylor were really okay. I didn't know about this. Okay, again, that would be something interesting. But to me, like a Bard is like okay, it's the clerk class. It's really good. We could do a lot of, or a librarian. It's something that NPC should be.
yeah, the barista.
Yeah, I want to be the guy that talks about how good you are. And then all right, that sounds fun. Don't complain that you're not getting any of the good magic items. Oh, there's no magic loots again. Oh well,
it does, to some extent, it does make sense. Like there's, bards would be making up stories about ancient heroes and this and that. So a bard could theoretically have all this lore knowledge that helps you with your quests and stuff. And like to that extent, it's good.
Bard of Era, Descendant of Jews. Yeah, it sounds interesting. Armed with only his harp and his fierce magic power, he gets tangled up in things with Vikings, a unicorn, and English, Brit, and simple tribes of Celtic folk. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I just think that player characters want to be a bard. I'm just like you just want to create, you just want to like what's the word? You want to be Daffy Duck in the middle of the. You just want to be an oddball that just wants to throw a grenade out. They never. They're like, I'm playing because I want to have fun. Screw what everybody else wants to do. Oh, that's another thing. Do you make everybody have the same alignment?
No. I have it. I kind of break all the rules on that. So the thing is, drama comes from conflict. Conflict doesn't necessarily mean fighting, but you can have people with competing goals. Like sometimes your goals will align. Like we got to get away from the dragon or we're all going to die, right? So everybody will pitch in. But then like your god wants a magic item and so does my god. How do we work that out? So that's, to me, is something for the players to figure out. One player can switch how they think. Their character can switch allegiances, or you can make some other kind of deals, or you could just be backstabby and screw the group. The thing is, you just sort of have to consider how are you playing with others, like
did you have the basic, like you all meet at the pub and you're going out to get the treasure from the creature, or is there like a grand unifying quest like Lord of the Rings?
Well, eventually. I start out, it depends on your alignment. So there's troubles between the elves, who were sort of the indigenous people in the area, and then the humans came in with some dwarves and halflings and whatnot, and they took over this area, right? So the initial quest depends on if you're aligned with the human group who's in control or if you're aligned with the elves. Because the first quest is either you have to stop a robbery or you're going to commit the robbery. And so when people start, like I'll have them in different starting places based on that. And I'll like go along with the storyline, when the other people can hear. And so some people, like they'll listen to me telling this group, like, okay, well, you got to steal this crystal. It's going to be at night. And then we'll switch over to the other group. And it's like, hey, we heard that there's going to be a robbery of this crystal at night. You need to go stop that. And, the groups are listening to each other, to the others' quests. And they're like, holy crap. And so, they've got to duke it out to see what happens with that crystal. And then based on some other stuff that happens, then they sort of get to be a group. And it's not necessarily because they're the best at anything. It's because the local government, the commander of the town warden, he doesn't have any other choice. He's like, all right, I gotta pick you guys because I had a lot of soldiers die.
Now, how about lethality? Do you let the players suffer the consequences of their actions, or do you save them?
So in this one instance, in that first one where they're going to try to steal the crystal, which is level 1, like the first thing you do, I do have them recover from that one, but then something else will happen uh, in the same level, probably in the same session, where if they die, they die. And anybody who is involved in trying to steal that crystal, except for the god whose worshippers it belongs to, you get rid of your death saving throws. So in the 5th edition, they came up with a mechanic where if you're reduced to 0 hit points, you don't die outright. You have to make 3 Constitution saves, and if you fail 3, then you're dead. If you succeed on 3, then you come back. You're unconscious, but you have 1 hit point. So part of the problem with 5e is just it's too hard to die. There's still instant death if you, like, let's say a player has 8 hit points and they're hit for 16 points of damage. So double the amount that they had, then they'd be dead. But virtually nothing hits you for like 100 points of damage. So once your players get 50 points, it's almost impossible to kill them outright. So I bring that back where a god curses you right away. And so that 3 death saving throw is gone. And it's back to like 1e sense of deadliness.
Oh, I'm pretty harsh. Death means death, and
Yep.
I also don't be like, you should do this. I'm like, to the point where sometimes it backfires, where the players will spend an inordinate amount of time just figuring out how to open up the door and walk into a radio shack, and you're like,
yes,
this doesn't matter, but I created the situation, and if I tell them it doesn't, then that's going to become, okay, John didn't tell us, so yeah. But death means dead, and I mostly play in the superhero world. You don't come back. You don't come back.
Yep.
The closest happens is there's an organization that captures the superhero bodies. They steal them from the morgue. So they've been finding their old characters that are preserved in like this amber-like substance. They're like, what's going on? This character literally died 20 years ago in real life. In game time, it's only 3 years. They're like, what's going on? But I don't want to talk about that because we haven't finished that storyline, that somebody's keeping paranormal bodies on ice. But they're not coming back. But they're still scientific curiosities. Although I don't encounter many systems. I remember System Shock. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that takes me back. Yeah. If I remember, if you did, say you had 20 hit points and you took 11 damage, it was more than 50. You took a System Shock roll to see if you actually died.
Yep.
Yeah. I that's funny that you said that. I haven't thought about that in a long time. Do they still have saving throws? Like you could look into the eyes of Medusa and you turn to stone and you're dead.
Oh yeah.
What about level drain? Did they get rid of? Oh, I'm sorry.
They have it, but it's very rare. Like they really took away the ability to drain level, and I can kind of understand that one.
I hate that. That is the worst.
But they also got rid of like losing items. I think there's only 1 or 2 creatures that will like disintegrate items that you have on you, with the exception of magic items.
Yeah, I got no problems. Like, you hit the sword. Again, I play a different system. So you hit the sword. Everything has structural ratings. Magic items actually have, extra because they're magic. But you could shatter your swords. You could shatter your weapons. Otherwise,
they more or less got rid of that.
Yeah. Level drain, I always thought wasn't because you spend so much time trying to level up. Like I'll very rarely I'll have creatures that'll eat your experience points, but say you're at 10,000 experience. I'm just making it up. At 10,000 means 5th level. They'll eat your experience point, but you'll stay at 5th level. It just makes it longer to get back up because right in the middle, we got to start breaking out the calculators, redoing the math, and take it. You still have everything. It's just that it's going to take you that much longer to get to the next level. Yeah. It's 6:00 now. You have to go someplace?
I gotta make dinner.
Oh yeah, me
before the
too.
wife gets home.
Yeah, I'm getting a little cranky myself. But again, this is me out of boredom. I'm just taking the D&D books. I'll go upstairs, see what else I have tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow I'm going to do it clobbering time. But any days I don't have anything scheduled, I'll break out these books. Thanks a lot, Yang. It's always good,
Yeah.
and it's always an open invite for anybody. As long as I can see your face. I don't like talking to avatars. So thanks a lot. We're going to get going. And thanks,
Thanks for having me.
Wolverine, for a lot of information. Thanks. I'm seeing messages pop up on Twitter for all the stuff that we were talking about. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.